Welcome to another episode of AnimeCons TV. My name is Doug Wilder, and I'm recording this the day before I go off to my 18th year attending Otakon. And, well, it's my 18th year, so a lot of people have actually asked me, how do you keep interesting? How do you stay involved and invested in going to this convention, especially a convention you've been going to that long, and how do you stay interested in conventions in general after such a long time? And it's one of those things that's a weird thing. So, maybe you have that friend that just says, conventions aren't fun anymore. They used to be fun, but now they're dull, boring, or whatever. Maybe you feel like, for whatever reason, kind of anime fandom has an expiration date, that you have to kind of grow up out of it. And, some of us are never going to grow up, but we'll get to that. Or maybe you feel like you've been going to conventions for a while now and nothing's really changed. It's only the same old thing over and over again, and it's gotten kind of boring. So I guess the question we got to ask is, how do you keep conventions interesting? Well, first things first, I'm going to tell you guys to do a little soul searching and think about why you started going to conventions. And how did that change? Did you start going because it was something you've never done before? It was something new, something flashy, something exciting, a new experience, things like that? Was it perhaps the only chance to see certain friends that you met online or never get to see anywhere else? Was the dealer's room at a convention the only chance to get certain merchandise that you collect because you can't find it anywhere else? Maybe you wanted to meet certain guests that were related to a favorite show or comic that you read. Or maybe there was some special programming that you absolutely had to see because you'd heard about it and you wanted to see it for the first time. So there's probably lots of reasons. And I'm going to touch on some of these as we look at alternate ways to kind of keep things at conventions, maybe not necessarily feeling new, but at least how to keep them interesting and engaging. So the first and most obvious one for me personally, I tell people, is consider doing different programming while you're at the convention. Don't just try and keep doing the same thing over and over again, because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, it's going to be literally the same thing. And eventually it does kind of get predictable. So there's different ways to do that. If you go to a certain type of panel, like maybe only panels related to a certain franchise that you like, or things like that, broaden your horizons. Maybe find panels of an anime or other TV show or whatever that you wanted to learn more about, that you'd only heard about but didn't know anything, or that's kind of tangentially related to the stuff you like. So maybe you liked My Hero Academia, and so maybe that's this kind of manga genre. It's a superhero manga. What other superhero manga is out there? So now you can find a panel like that. But one I'll always kind of tell people to check out, especially if you really are invested in anime and manga, go to Japanese creator panels. A lot of times we'll go to big conventions, say for example, Otakon or Anime Boston stuff, and they'll invite Japanese guests. And their panel room won't be very full. There'll be plenty of empty seats. And these are often some of the most interesting panels, because these are people that work in the industry, talk about very specific details, like what it was like working on a certain project, interesting stories they've had from their time in the industry, things like that. And it's a really kind of missed opportunity that a lot of people don't look for. Also look for panels that are known for altering their content from year to year. Some people have a panel that they submit every year to the same convention. They keep the title the same. The convention tries to schedule them at the same time year after year, but it's different content every year. And some panels get a reputation for having different content year after year. And that way, if you've gone to it before, you like it, then at least it's going to be still content that's interesting to you because it's new but still related. Also, finally, if you've gone to, say, a panel or event that was run by someone that you really liked, look up that panelist, look up that presenter, see what else they're doing. Maybe they're doing other conventions, or they're presenting a different panel at the same con you're going to, because now you've said, okay, this person does a quality panel on this thing, I want to see if they'll do another good panel on this other thing. And now they've got a kind of a reputation for you, and you have at least an easy threshold for quality of things that'll be interesting to you. Next up, I'll say this is consider attending different conventions. And I realize right off the bat, some people are limited by either where they live or how much budget they have for traveling to another convention, especially if you have to pay for a hotel room or extra gas money, things like that. That can play a factor. But if you can save up or just try a different convention, maybe take a year off of the one that you always gone to and see a new one, it's probably going to help and give you some perspective. There's almost certain to be at least one or two pieces of programming that are going to be completely different that you would never see at the other convention that you go to. Maybe just different types of cosplayers at the convention because it's a different time of year, or just the fandom's different in that area, things like that. And another thing related to that is, no matter how good a convention is, no one convention does it perfectly. I mean, I have conventions I love, I have conventions I hate, but no one gets it 100% right. Plenty of them do a very good job, but no one's going to do it absolutely perfectly. And sometimes if you go to another convention, you might get a deeper appreciation for kind of your hometown con, like the one that you go to locally, because of things like that. It's what you're used to. Or you might fall in love with that new convention and say, well, to heck with you, old con, I have a new one that I love. So there's ways to look at it that way too. Next up, merchandise. Yeah, you mentioned that sometimes people stop going to conventions because there's not a lot of stuff they really want in the dealer's room anymore. And there's a couple different ways that you can kind of keep this fresh. First off is, instead of maybe the dealer's room, go to Artist Alley. There's a lot of creators that make really neat things. You might find a good print or drawing of your favorite character. You might be able to commission a sketch of someone, your favorite character. Maybe get someone to draw your favorite Pokemon doing something awesome or something like that. And that's a good way to kind of get not only new and different merchandise, but especially if you do like a commission at an Artist Alley, it's going to be something that's kind of unique and special and just for you. It's one of a kind. But if you still want to kind of browse the dealer's room, there's a couple of things you can do. One of the things I've always tried to do for the past couple of years is I kind of have what I call a quest item. And what I mean by that is it's something that I'm specifically looking for, and I kind of limit myself to only looking for it in the dealer's room. Or it's harder to find, so I'm going to have to spend more time looking through booths, things like that. Several years ago now, I was collecting the original Great Teacher Onizuka manga. And I was buying just the regular individual volumes. And my rule was I could only buy individual volumes at a convention dealer's room. I wasn't allowed to go like on Amazon or eBay and order them that way. I had to buy it in a dealer's room. And it probably took me about a year till I got every single volume, because obviously I can't go to a convention every weekend as much as I'd like to be able to. And I had to search some vendor's booth to find it. I had to keep a list of the volumes I needed. But it was a fun way to kind of go through some of these older booths, especially ones that have kind of older stock, or they just kind of hold on to items until someone finally buys it at a convention, things like that. And it's a good way to kind of browse, especially if you like looking at, kind of, for lack of a better term, the shelf warmer items that the vendor holds on to forever and forever until they're able to sell it. Another thing you can do is, especially like booths that have a lot of merchandise that's hard to browse, is take some time, if you can, make some time to really dive in, so to speak. At what was the name of that con? Anime Fan Fest, thank you. In New Jersey, back 2 years ago, I think. I went to that convention, and one of the things I did was I found one vendor that had a bunch of those long comic book boxes full of floppy comic books, and they were all anime and kind of manga related ones like that. And several friends and we started just diving in and spending time browsing through the booth to see what we found. Like, I found some really neat, like, old Gundam floppy books like this that, kind of all but forgotten to time. But these were older items, kind of neat, and as a collector of Gundam, they were super cool. Another time I found one booth at, I believe it was Otakon, that sold nothing but kind of gotcha toys, those little toys that come from coin machines that are in the little plastic balls, and they have little, like, kind of toys and stuff. And this was just a booth full of them from all sorts of anime, things like that. And once again, I had to just kind of dive in and start looking for things that I found interesting, because it was, a little disorganized. Even sometimes I think they had certain bins dedicated to certain franchises, but I still had to go through it all. And it was a neat way to really look at and see what I could find for interesting material. So it's a good way to just try something new. And that's part of it too. And speaking of part of it, the next thing I'll say for kind of keeping a convention fresh and interesting is, well, become part of it. And what I mean by that is maybe just not, instead of kind of consuming what the convention has to offer, maybe take the opposite role and be part of providing the content. And that can mean a bunch of different things, such as, well, those of you who have seen this podcast for a while now know that I like to present panels at convention. Maybe one way to keep a convention experience fresh is submit a panel application and present a panel at the convention. You can also join other programming. If you're starting to get into cosplay more, maybe sign up for the Masquerade. If you're an artist, maybe sign up for a table at Artist Alley. If you're trying your hand at video editing, submit to the music video contest. And stuff like that. It's neat because not only are you kind of enjoying the con on your own, but like say at the music video contest, if you're one of the finalists, not only do you get to sit down in that room that you've always seen all those AMVs that you love, but now you're a finalist and you get to see the video you made on the big screen and see the fans' reaction to it. And that's something that's pretty cool. I mean, things like that. And then, of course, the big one for kind of becoming part of it is maybe it's consider volunteering at the convention. Like, take a day, just do a couple hours with the volunteer stuff. Or if you want to get even more serious, look at joining staff of the convention. And I'll just preface this with volunteering and staffing are 100% not for everyone. For starters, we couldn't have a convention if everyone was on staff. But at the same time, there's plenty of other neat things that you can do, especially if there's an area you want to learn more about, or you have a special skill that might be helpful for the staff. Look into that. I've said before, when you're on staff, you get to kind of have a different brand of fun, different kind of it. And you'll probably meet a lot of neat people, and which kind of will bring us to the next thing, which is, we say friends sometimes say, oh, well, cons aren't interesting to me. And this can be a tough one because sometimes just people grow out of fandoms. It happens. Things that mattered to us, 5-10 years ago don't matter to us anymore, and that's okay. If you want to try, maybe invite that friend and say, hey, I'm going to XYZ Con in Wichita. I'd love for you to be able to come back and see it. And maybe the friend will say, oh, it's been time. But the friend could say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not really my thing anymore. And either response is okay. Don't get mad if people say thanks, but no thanks. As long as they're not being hostile to you, it's time to move on. But again, there are ways to make new friends. I brought up paneling again because I've done panels at conventions. I've met some people that I now consider some of the best friends I've ever had on the convention scene. It's hard to imagine my convention experience without them. When I joined staff, I got to know some people. I met Patrick, our main host of AnimeCons TV and webmaster of AnimeCons.com. I met him through staffing. I met Elizabeth, one of our other hosts on AnimeCons TV, when she joined staff. Our friend Sketch, he joined staff after I got to know him, but he was on staff at Anime Boston for a little while too. things like that. And again, these are people that I've met that are some of the people that are super dear to me and things like that. So it's a really neat way to meet friends. And again, Artist Alley is another way you can make connections if you decide to run a table. If you submit an anime music video, maybe you can meet up with fellow editors, things like that. There's plenty of ways to make new friends. I mean, I know it can be scary to make new friends. I get it, but don't give up hope. There's just ways to look at it. And finally, the thing I will say is one of the ways you can avoid burnout and just feeling like cons are getting stale is think about quality of conventions versus quantity of convention. A lot of burnout I've seen for people that say conventions are no longer fun are people who either do too many conventions, like they attend 20 in a year, or they just burn themselves out because they try and do every single thing at one convention, and both aren't that good. So consider what you're doing and really kind of invest your time and make do the ones that you know are going to be fun. Do the things that really are the things you're passionate about. Don't just kind of do a convention or do an event at a convention for the sake of doing it. Attend it, do it because it's something that matters to you. And sometimes it requires taking a step back and just saying, I'm going to do maybe a fewer conventions this year, but I'm still going to go to that one I know I always have a good time at. And this is really good if you go to a lot of conventions and starting to feel burnt out. Taking a step back, taking a year off, and only focusing on the ones that you know for certain are the ones you have fun at will make those ones even better, because now you've kind of given yourself a little bit of a reprieve. You've had a chance to take a step back, and now you can dive back in and really make that fun. So that's a lot of it. Once again, quality over quantity. So if you have any other questions about how to keep conventions fresh or anything else, don't forget to send us an email or at podcast@animecons.tv, or look us up on social media with AnimeCons TV. I will be reporting back next week with my convention report from Otakon 2018. I'm Doug Wilder. I'm at Nigoki on Twitter, and I'll see you guys soon.